My CEO wife, Vivian Hayes, believed for 3 months of the silent treatment had finally worked when she learned I willingly handed over a multi-million-dollar project to her favorite young assistant, Julian Chase. The moment she learned it, her entire face lit up as if she had just saved the world. She even floated the idea of a honeymoon in Iceland, smiling like a newlywed bride instead of the woman who had barely looked at me for 90 days. But Julian did not share her joy. When he found out I had given him the project, he stormed into her office and threatened to quit. Vivian, who treated him like a fragile treasure sent down from the heavens, panicked instantly. For 3 days and nights she coaxed him, soothed him, and finally, without so much as a second thought, canceled our honeymoon and handed her ticket to him. She called it a business trip, something urgent that required her personal attention. Later that night, while casually removing her earrings, she told me with a straight face, "Personal feelings are secondary. Caleb, what comes first as a boss? I have to prioritize the company. You are my husband, you should understand." I did not answer at first. My phone had just lit up with Julian's newest post, a cozy selfie of him and Vivian sitting shoulder to shoulder on a plane, hands forming a heart in the frame. They looked like a couple celebrating an anniversary. I simply nodded. It was easier. Vivian mistook my silence for maturity, generosity even. She left that night pleased, promising that once she returned, she would take me on an even more romantic honeymoon. She truly believed things between us were improving. She had no idea I had already submitted my resignation, nor that she had already signed our divorce papers without realizing what they were. On the second morning of her honeymoon with Julian, I completed my final handovers, cleared my desk, and met with HR. Less than 10 minutes after I submitted the resignation, I received the automatic approval. The HR manager exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Looks like Miss Hayes wanted to fire him a long time ago. Good thing he knew when to leave. Staying here would only upset her. Wonder what he'll do next. Another chimed in. Why are we even worrying about him? He is Miss Hayes' husband. He'll be fine even if he never works again. My colleagues were clustered around the lobby, smoking, gossiping, barely hiding their amusement. Everyone knew Julian and I didn't get along, and Vivian never bothered to hide her favoritism. Sometimes she even corrected my work in front of strangers just to praise him. They thought I would be devastated. Too bad for them. I zipped the last pocket of my bag and said calmly, "No need to worry. I already have a new job. Double the pay. Better benefits." Their smug expressions twisted instantly into envy. I did not stay long enough to enjoy it. I headed toward the exit, the weight on my shoulders strangely light. Just as I stepped outside the building, my phone rang. Vivian. I inhaled slowly. I had wondered how I would tell her about the resignation, but when I answered, she did not even say hello. "Caleb, I sent you a file. Get it done, and return it within the hour." She still thought I worked for her. I let out a quiet laugh under my breath and opened the file. It was the exact project I had handed over to Julian, the one she insisted belonged to him. The pattern never changed. He received the praise and spotlight, and if something went wrong, I was the one blamed in the end. For years I had done the legwork, quietly cleaning up the messes, preparing the drafts, fixing the errors, letting Julian enjoy the victory lap. And every time I hesitated, Vivian would guilt-trip me, coax me, or punish me with silence. If I stood my ground, she would pull all-nighters herself, forcing me to step in because I could not bear to watch her exhaust herself. Some foolish part of me believed one day she would understand how deeply I cared. That illusion died the night she fought with me over Julian's promotion. She did not speak to me for 3 months. Even when I collapsed with a fever of 104 degrees and was admitted to the hospital, she refused to visit unless I handed Julian the multi-million-dollar project I had fought tooth and nail to secure. That was the night I admitted I had been alone in this marriage for a long time. "I'm not in the office," I replied flatly when she demanded the completed file. "Not in the office." Vivian's voice chilled immediately. "Caleb Stone, it is working hours. Unauthorized absence results in a day's pay deduction, according to company policy." "I know. But I already..." Before I could finish, a soft, gentle voice floated through the line. "Julian." "Vivian, sweetie, if Caleb isn't willing, don't force him. I can do it." "No. You stayed up so late yesterday. You need to rest today." Vivian's tone turned warm, tender, the complete opposite of how she had spoken to me seconds earlier. Julian protested lightly, but she shut it down with a playful scold. "I am your boss. My order for you to rest is non-negotiable. Do you dare disobey me? I could almost picture him grinning at her. Then he sighed dramatically. I just feel bad for Caleb. Is he as tired as you? She is traveling for business, managing negotiations, while he just sits around doing nothing. Besides, he is her husband. Shouldn't he help more? Vivian scoffed, dismissing months of my work with one breath. You are on business trips managing contracts while he just sits around doing nothing all day. And since he is my husband, it is only right he puts in more effort. I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no bitterness. Just emptiness. When something breaks too many times, eventually you stop trying to fix it. Seeing that I did not argue, Vivian softened again. Caleb, do you really think I am piling work on you? I am challenging you. You should have more responsibility. You should learn from Julian. He worked until 4 in the morning yesterday. I have never seen someone so young, so gifted and so driven. Julian chuckled, pretending humility. I think Caleb is talented too. The mockery underneath his voice was clear, but Vivian did not notice. She laughed instead. If he had half your talent, I would wake up smiling every day. They continued their little duet, praising each other as though I were not even on the line. I stayed silent. There was nothing left to say. She believed I would never leave her because I had endured so much already. 5 years of marriage had convinced her my patience was infinite. But she did not know that I had already walked away. Vivian did not wait for my reply. She simply said, all right, Julian and I have a client meeting later. Finish everything and send it over. Then the line went dead. Less than 2 minutes passed before my phone buzzed again. 2 notifications, both from Julian's Snapchat. The first photo showed him and Vivian seated across a lavish candlelit table. Soft golden light reflected in her eyes as she leaned her head playfully against his shoulder, looking more relaxed than I had seen her in months. In front of Julian sat a small velvet box, subtle enough to pass as a business gift, yet unmistakably the size of a ring. The second post had been from the night before, time stamped at 4 a.m. He and Vivian were still at a bar, laughing with flushed cheeks and glasses raised. According to Vivian, this was Julian working hard, pushing himself for the company. Their client dinner later was nothing more than another date. A hollow laugh escaped me. I no longer felt anger, only exhaustion. If I confronted Vivian, she would deny everything, twist the truth, or worse, punish me with another long stretch of silence. I had lived through enough of her cold wars, each one draining me until I became the one apologizing just to restore peace. For years, I had poured energy into trying to fix what she never intended to fix. If I had used that energy to work harder or build something of my own, I would have been better off. Partners can betray you. Money will not. With that thought, I drove out of the parking lot, mind already shifting to my next steps. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a payment notification. Vivian had used my card to spend $20,000 again. Everyone assumed I married her for her money, but the truth was painfully ironic. She held all my cards, quite literally. She always claimed her funds were tied up in the company, so my salaries, bonuses, and side hustle income were used for our expenses. I never complained. I grew up believing a man should contribute more to the household. But lately I noticed something bizarre. No matter how much I earned, my balance barely grew. Curiosity pushed me to check my statements. That was when it all unraveled. Vivian had been using my card to buy gifts for Julian. A gaming console worth hundreds, a tailored suit worth thousands, and even a 5-star hotel stay for his birthday, costing nearly as much as my monthly salary. Meanwhile, she argued when I wanted to buy a shirt or replace worn-out shoes, claiming anything over $100 was too expensive. For my birthdays, she gave me handwritten cards, saying she preferred saving money for our future. So I confronted her. Vivian's face darkened instantly. She accused me of not trusting her, then punished me with another silent treatment, swearing she would never touch my money again. Remembering that moment tightened something in my chest. Even so, I called her. Once, twice, then more than a dozen times. No answer. Fine. I drove straight to the bank and froze my card. Less than a minute later, Vivian called back. I was busy. I didn't see her calls earlier. What's wrong? She asked, her voice light, almost sweet. Nothing now, I replied. She sighed. Oh, your colleague seems to have an issue. His card isn't working. It shows frozen. I know. You know? I did it, I said calmly. I froze it. Why would you freeze your card for no reason? Just for fun. Let's say that, I replied. But didn't you say you'd never touch my card again? Vivian choked on her words. She had long forgotten the promises she made during the early days of the company, when everything was falling apart. Back then, I had fallen seriously ill. The surgery cost $60,000. At the same time, she had secretly invested all our savings into a risky new project and lost every cent. She broke down crying that night, terrified I would blame her. Instead, I held her and told her it did not matter. Money could be earned again. My account was hers to use always. I thought honesty would strengthen our marriage. It only encouraged her recklessness. Vivian stayed silent for 2 seconds, then exhaled. All right, I get it. You're still upset I canceled the honeymoon, so you're throwing a tantrum. Caleb Stone, I really thought you had grown up, but you're still so petty. She softened her tone, the same coaxing voice she always used when she wanted something. I promise once this trip is done, I'll drop everything. We'll go on a proper honeymoon. All right? I didn't bring my own cards on this trip. Go unfreeze your card. Don't make things difficult. This client dinner is important. I'm giving you 10 minutes. If you don't fix it, I'll be really mad. In the past, that threat would have worked. I was never afraid of her anger. I simply didn't want to add more stress to her life. But now I understood that most of her burdens were ones she created herself. If she chose chaos, why should I break myself to cushion her fall? If you didn't bring your card, ask your secretary or Julian. This business trip is for his project anyway. It wouldn't be unreasonable for him to cover the expenses. I sent the message, turned off my phone, and drove home. The house greeted me with familiar quiet the moment I stepped inside. I had bought it with my savings and paid for the layout she dreamed of. I originally planned to add her name to the deed, but some faint instinct, stopped me. I was grateful for it now. I packed my things neatly room by room, placing clothes and documents into suitcases. When I was done, I called a real estate agent and listed the house. The next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office with the signed divorce papers. When she had signed them weeks earlier, she never even glanced at the contents. She had been in such a rush to catch her flight with Julian that she flipped straight to the last page, scribbled her name, and dashed out the door. Just take a look, I had told her then, still clinging to some fragile hope she would at least read what she was agreeing to. No need. You're my husband. Why wouldn't I trust you? I had laughed then, a hollow little sound. Her trust in me had been worth less than a minute of her time. She trusted Julian more than she trusted her own husband. In the end, her impatience saved me. It saved me from begging her to stay. It saved me from explaining why I was finally walking away. Once I submitted the papers, the clerk scanned through them, then lifted their head with a hesitant expression. We still need confirmation from both parties that the marriage has completely broken down, they explained. We cannot process the divorce without it. I had expected everything to be finished today. Hearing that made my stomach tighten. I pulled out my phone and showed the clerk the photos Vivian and Julian posted online, their intimate poses at dinner, the way she leaned into him with the ease of someone who had long forgotten she was married. I even showed the picture of our wedding portrait, the one she shattered during an argument over Julian. The clerk still shook their head. I understand, sir. But we need direct verbal confirmation. I let out a long breath, the kind that drags a little pain with it. There was no avoiding it. I needed to call her. I turned my phone back on. The screen lit up instantly, flashing one notification after another. Dozens of missed calls. Rows of unread messages. Vivian had gone from angry to pleading to furious again. Since her card remained frozen, she had spiraled through every emotion she could weaponize. Her last message was a long tirade that ended with her threatening divorce. I handed my phone to the clerk, letting them scroll through the frantic texts. They pressed their lips together, almost wincing. I am sorry, sir. We still need to hear it from her directly. There was no other choice. I dialed her number. The call rang for a long time. The kind of long that makes you question if you should hang up. Finally, she answered. What do you want? Her voice was sharp, brittle from hours of anger. Vivian, our relationship, I began. Relationship? What relationship? Her laugh was cold and humorless. Nothing you say matters anymore. I am divorcing you. That is final. She hung up before I could respond. The silence that followed felt strangely light, as if a long chain had dropped from my shoulders. I lifted my gaze. The clerk had witnessed the entire exchange through the phone speaker. They nodded slowly, eyes softening with sympathy. All right, they said gently. We can proceed. For the first time in a long while, I felt the faintest sense of freedom settle over me. The divorce was finalized within 2 weeks. Vivian never knew she had already signed the papers during her rush to catch that flight with Julian. By the time the official notice arrived at her office, I had already moved into a modest apartment across town and started my new position at Meridian Tech. My new boss, Richard Chen, was everything Vivian wasn't: direct, fair, and genuinely interested in results rather than office politics. Within my first week, I had already impressed the leadership team with a presentation that secured a major contract. The same skills Vivian had taken for granted were finally being recognized. I was in the middle of a strategy meeting when my phone buzzed repeatedly. I ignored it. When the meeting ended, I found 43 missed calls from Vivian and a string of increasingly frantic messages. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Caleb, this isn't funny. Come home right now. I need you to fix Julian's mess." The client backed out. "You need to salvage this." The final message made me pause. "Fine. I forgive you for freezing the card. Just come back and fix this." She forgave me, as if I had been the one waiting for her permission to move on. I blocked her number and returned to work. Vivian showed up at what used to be our house 3 days later, only to find it empty and listed for sale. According to my real estate agent, she had stood in the doorway for nearly 20 minutes, calling my name into the hollow rooms. She tracked down my parents next. My mother later told me Vivian had arrived in tears, claiming I had abandoned her without warning, that I was being unreasonable and cruel. My mother, who had watched me grow thinner and quieter over 5 years of marriage, simply said, "He finally learned to put himself first. I'm proud of him." Vivian tried my friends, my former colleagues, even showed up at the company I had left. HR informed her I no longer worked there and refused to provide my new contact information. She was everywhere except where I now existed, in a life without her. Meanwhile, the project she had forced Julian to handle was collapsing. Without me quietly fixing errors and managing the details, Julian's inexperience became glaringly obvious. The client threatened to sue for breach of contract. Vivian worked around the clock trying to salvage it, the same exhausting pattern she once fell into. Except this time, I wasn't there to save her. My former colleague, Marcus, reached out to me with updates. He seemed almost gleeful sharing the office gossip. "Julian quit last week," he told me over coffee. Turns out he couldn't handle the pressure once things went wrong. Vivian had a complete meltdown in front of the board. They're questioning her judgment now. Some are even calling for her resignation. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just a strange, peaceful numbness. "She's been asking about you constantly," Marcus continued. "She finally figured out about the divorce. She tried to contest it, but apparently you have all the documentation needed. It's airtight." I nodded slowly. "Good. There's something else." Marcus hesitated. "She found out about your new position at Meridian. And your salary." I raised an eyebrow. She went pale when she heard the number. I think she finally realized what she lost. I took a sip of my coffee. She didn't lose me. She threw me away. There's a difference. 6 weeks after the divorce, I received an email from Vivian's attorney requesting a meeting to discuss asset division. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a simple note: "Handle it." The truth was simple. We had a prenuptial agreement Vivian had insisted on before our marriage, designed to protect her family's company assets. What she had forgotten was that it also clearly stated any property purchased with my income remained mine alone. The house, the car I drove, even the furniture she had picked out, all of it had been paid for with my salary, while her money stayed locked in company investments. She had nothing to claim. My lawyer called a week later, sounding almost amused. Her attorney withdrew the request. Apparently, Ms. Hayes, was unaware of the terms of her own prenup. I thanked him and hung up. That evening, I received a personal email from Vivian. Not through lawyers, not through intermediaries. Just her words, raw and desperate. "Caleb, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please just meet me once. I need to explain. I need you to understand that I never meant for things to end this way. Everything is falling apart. The company is struggling. Julian is gone. My board is losing faith in me. And the only person who ever truly had my back, the only person I could always count on, I drove away. I was blind. I was selfish. I took you for granted because you were always there, and I thought you always would be. I thought your love was unconditional. I'm not asking you to come back. I just want to see you one more time. To apologize properly. To tell you that you deserved so much better than what I gave you. Please, Caleb. Just one conversation. That's all I'm asking." Vivian. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. 3 months later, I was promoted to Director of Strategic Development at Meridian Tech. The announcement came with a significant raise and my own team. Richard clapped me on the shoulder during the celebration, grinning widely. You've earned this 10 times over, Caleb. I'm glad you're here. I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely proud of myself. That weekend, I attended a company social event. I wasn't particularly social by nature, but my team had insisted, and I found myself actually enjoying the evening. That's when I met Dr. Sarah Lynn, a consultant brought in for a medical tech project we were developing. She was brilliant, sharp-witted, and refreshingly direct. When she asked what I did, I told her about my work. When I asked about hers, she spoke with such passion about improving healthcare accessibility that I found myself genuinely engaged. You're a good listener, she said at one point, studying me with curious eyes. I've had practice, I replied, then caught myself. Sorry, that sounded bitter. No. She shook her head. It sounded honest. We talked until the event ended, and when she handed me her card, she added her personal number on the back. In case you ever want to continue this conversation, she said with a slight smile. I pocketed the card carefully. I will. Nearly 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Vivian completely by accident. I was leaving a business lunch downtown when I spotted her across the street. She looked thinner, tired, her designer suit hanging slightly loose on her frame. She was alone. For a moment, our eyes met. She froze, her expression shifting through surprise, hope, and something that looked like grief. I could have walked away. Part of me wanted to. But another part, the part that had loved her once, that had built a life with her, knew I needed this moment too. I crossed the street. Caleb. Her voice cracked slightly. You look well. Thank you. So do you. It wasn't entirely true, but kindness cost me nothing now. She paused, struggling. I wanted to reach out so many times, but I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I wouldn't have, I admitted. Not then. But it's been some time. She nodded, blinking rapidly. I lost everything, Caleb. The company's been restructured. I'm no longer CEO. Julian destroyed my reputation when he quit, told everyone I was impossible to work with, that I played favorites, that I was... She stopped. He told everyone what I already knew, what you tried to tell me. I said nothing. You are the only real thing in my life, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. And I traded you for an illusion, for someone who flattered my ego and disappeared the moment things got hard. I know, I said simply. Can you ever forgive me? I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness wasn't about her anymore. It was about me releasing the last bit of weight I'd been carrying. I forgive you, Vivian. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Her eyes filled with tears. Is there any chance? No. I said it gently, but firmly. That chapter is closed. We both need to move forward separately. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who sees your worth. Someone who treats you the way I should have. I think I already have, I said, thinking of Sarah's smile, the way she listened when I spoke, the way she valued my opinion without diminishing her own. Vivian managed a sad smile. Good. That's good. We stood there for another moment, two people who once promised forever, now little more than strangers with shared history. Goodbye, Vivian. Goodbye, Caleb. I walked away without looking back. The sun was warm on my face, and my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah asking if I was free for dinner. I smiled and replied that I was. For the first time in years, my future felt entirely my own. And it was enough.